Ready when you are.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. The notice requirement provided for the Open Public Meetings Law has been satisfied. Notice was properly given. Said notice having been transmitted to the Courier News on Tuesday, April 21st, 2020, as well as posting on the city's website. Clerk, may I have a roll call?
Council members Davis.
Present.
Good.
Present.
McKenna.
Present.
McCray.
Present.
Mills Ransom.
Present.
Vice President Armati.
Here.
Council President Hockaday.
Here.
Council President, we have all council members present and a quorum.
Thank you. This evening, the Plainfield Municipal Council will conduct its budget deliberations on the 2020 calendar year municipal operating budget. The session is scheduled to discuss the fire and public works and the Department of Finance. Would the fire director please begin with his budget overview? Good afternoon, Director.
Good afternoon.
How are you?
I'm pretty good.
Good.
So,
Good
good
to,
evening, Council. Excuse me.
good to hear from you.
Okay, good. Good evening, Council President, Council members, and CBAC Chair. I'm Director of Children's of the Department. Presenting to you this budget and Captain Thompson. But first, I would like to men and women of the Plainfield Fire Department and state for all that they do, and that the protection of life and property and fire prevention that they provide could not happen without them. The Queen City's Bravest are some of the best trained firefighters in the state. We have 7 members who belong to the USAR team, which is the Urban Search and Rescue Team, which conducts special operations throughout the state and in other states for disaster relief. Yesterday, our firefighters assisted in a rescue in North Plainfield while performing mutual aid to the brave men and women of North Plainfield Fire Department. Because of our professional training, we were able to remove the victim, who was then transported to a nearby facility for medical treatment. I would like everybody to give them a round of applause for the good work that they do. Now, I would like to give you a brief overview of the fire department. As some of you may know, my tenure began June 1st, 2019, after my retirement, after having served the city 28 years. We have a total of 111 brave men and women who protect this city. We are comprised of 3 divisions within the fire department: fire suppression, fire prevention bureau, and office of emergency management. In 2019, we responded to 3,525 alarms. And in 2020, we have already responded to 1,268. We were appropriated $765,000 in overtime funding for 2019, in which $549,972.21 was consumed, leaving a savings of $224,027.88, which amounts to 29.3% reduction. We're currently understaffed with 10 firefighters. Fully being staffed is what helps us reduce our overtime. As we go through the budget, you will notice various line items receive reductions and others reflect increases. Both were done after careful analysis and were data driven. We'll also see various goals and objectives that have drastically changed due to our current health crisis, COVID-19 pandemic. But rest assured, they're only bumps in the road and not mountains we cannot climb. We will evolve, adapt, overcome, and ultimately succeed in achieving our goals. Also, be advised that Mayor App has tasked me with finding other additional budget concessions, which I'm now analyzing, and those decisions will become a reality. I will now take your questions.
Okay. Director West, did you say you wanted to give a brief overview in terms of the relative size of the budget?
Yeah, Aliko, would you bring up the chart, please? And basically what I wanted to indicate here is the fact that the fire department represents 12% of the city's budget. And the bravest and finest there, when you add them up with the police department, constitute 30% of the city's budget. And in the case of fire, we're talking $10,772,575. And that's what I wanted to cover, Council President.
Okay. On your chart, it says the police is 33% and then fire is 12.
No, what you have to do is all other, is the 33%.
Okay.
Police happen to be 18%.
18, the light blue. Okay.
That's correct.
Got it. Thank you for that clarification. Okay, questions from council, starting with Finance Chair, Councilman Charles McCray.
Good evening, Director.
Good evening.
Congratulations and well wishes to all the brave men and women who assisted North Plainfield yesterday.
Thank you.
In their heroic acts. They truly represent the city very finely. My question has been basically around the youth task force, the youth cadet program that you plan to implement. How is that going, and how many youth do you plan to assist, given the fact that we have this COVID situation that's in front of us right now? Are the plans still, or is a go ahead for that to happen?
All right. That's fine if that's the entirety of your questions, Councilman McCray. You can go ahead and answer that, Director.
Unfortunately, due to the pandemic, our program would involve us being in very close contact with the youth, and as of now, that's something that we don't foresee happening. So we will have to devise some other program to get Zoom learning situation we can put them in. But to bring them all together now to form a program, which we had applications ready to go, the schools closed and we were no longer able to recruit. So the program is on the shelf for the moment.
Okay, thank you. Next, we'd like to move to Councilman Good.
Good evening, Director.
Good evening.
How you doing tonight? Listen, I just have a couple.
I'm good.
Just a couple of questions, and being the chair on the committee for the fire division, we have talked countless times about different things. So I really don't have a lot of questions because I already know some of the things that I have run past you before. The pandemic has also, I know they have set us back as far as the academy is concerned or the training is concerned. And you said you're down 10 firefighters. So, of course, this is why you don't have a slam with overtime, correct?
Correct.
So is there any at all, or there is none? Overtime.
I'm not You're gonna have to repeat that.
Is there any overtime at all, or regardless of
Yes,
how
there-
small? House,
Yes, there is. Yes, there is overtime.
there is.
But the
Okay,
yeah, but the overtime is under control.
it's under control. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me just also say,
Barry, Councilman, let
Yes.
me remind you that the questions are to be asked in succession and then allow the director to respond. Was that your only question, or did you have a series of questions?
actually, no, I just wanted to make a statement and then move on,
Actually,
if that's okay with you, Council President.
point of order, Council President.
Yes, Councilman.
You know, the municipal code does not give the council president the authority to modify the process for a meeting. So the process is driven by the code, which does not give the president of the council the ability to do that. And then it is governed by Robert's rules, which allow council members 10 minutes. And then they can have a second request or a second time to speak if they so choose after all the other council members have taken their opportunity to speak. So there is no limitation or approach that you're taking. It's not in the municipal code, and it's not how this should be done.
Council President, I would just like to make a statement, and I have nothing else to say. Is that okay?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Director Childress, I just wanted to also comment and say I echo the words of our committee chair that it's no secret that the men at the fire division, they do an outstanding service to the city of Plainfield. They are no doubt our bravest, and they do supply this community with the best service. I drove past the fire that they assisted with yesterday, and you would have to be brave to go into that particular structure. So I salute you and your firefighters on this evening. Thank you, Council President. That'll be all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we will now hear from Councilwoman Joylette Mills Ransom. I don't see her lit up. She's not muted, but I don't see her video. Are you there?
I'm here now. It's not bad. You're called while I was. Is that what I hear?
I'm sorry. Is she coming in choppy to everyone else?
Yes.
Okay. Joylette, perhaps there's a issue with your signal strength, but we don't see your camera and your voice is coming through choppy. All right, so we'll come back to you in a few, okay? We will move to Councilwoman Ashley Davis.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Director, I'm just going to echo the last two council people about the great work that the fire division does, but I do have a few questions.
Yep.
So I'll try to read them kind of slow so you can get them all. So how has COVID-19 affected the hiring of the 6 cadet firefighters that you had in your goals? What will fire education look like if distance learning is to continue with the schools? What will fire education look like to the public during these times of social distancing? Can you speak to why the travel reimbursement line was so overspent last year? And Mr. West, if you could let us know, did they receive a budget transfer last year for that? Also, why was the acting pay line so overspent last year? In your goals, you talk about getting new software, but you're only asking for $7,000. But why was the maintenance and software line so overspent last year? I know you came like halfway through the year, but if the other person that you have on the line can maybe speak to that as well. If you can explain budget line 0-01-25-265-001-257, which is chief's expenses. If you could just kind of explain what expenditures came from that line, and if we no longer have a fire chief, why are we still putting money in that particular line? Those are all of my questions tonight.
first question, how was COVID-19 affecting our daily routine?
No, the hiring of 6 cadet firefighters.
The hiring of cadet firefighters. Unfortunately, the academy is closed due to COVID-19. Those firefighters will have to attend the fire academy, which is now closed at this time, and they have given us no guidelines as to when they'll be open or how they want to proceed. A lot of their training is hands-on, and it's going to have to be modified in some fashion. I'm pretty sure that the classroom portion, we might be able to, at least the academy, I'm assuming, will be able to provide some sort of Zoom or meetings to go for possible classroom classes, but the hands-on physical training is up in the air. So right now, that's on hold. Second one was travel reimbursement line. Those expenses occurred before my tenure, before June 1st, and the previous director used that line to go on a convention, but I did not use that line. It occurred before I was here. The acting pay or intern pay, which is the correct term for it through civil service, is what we use to keep the overtime down. There are times when, based on our general orders or policies or civil service, when we can use what we call an actor or intern. So basically, instead of having an overtime for 5 weeks, I'm able to use an intern. So you'll see the intern or acting pay go up, but you'll see the overtime decrease. So I'm paying out straight time in acting versus paying time and a half to call in an overtime. So that's why you saw the acting line go up. And last question was maintenance. Oh, maintenance of the software. The software has already been acquired. The $7,000 that you see, I believe that's maintenance, John? That's just the maintenance. Yeah. Okay. I'll refer to Battalion Chief Reed, and he'll answer that question. He's more intimate detail.
Good evening.
Good evening.
All right. To ask the question about.
One of you have to mute your mics. You both can't have.
I got you. All right, I'm here. Do you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, just could you clarify that question about the maintenance, maintenance question?
Yes, so in the goals and objectives, it talks about getting new software, but yet you're only asking for $7,000, but also that line was overspent. So you're only asking for $7,000 this year, but
Yes.
last year that line was overspent. So if the director if I understand the director correctly, some software was already bought last year, and that $7,000 is to maintain that software that was bought last year. But in the goals and objectives for the fire department, it says that you're also acquiring new software this year. So where is the money for that new software this year?
No, it's the same. It's the same software. It was kind of in the transition. The money that we saved in the overtime budget was transferred over, and we utilized funding to purchase the new software. Currently, we operate with 3 separate types of software in the fire division: a LATEC, ESP, and QED. We're in the process of trying to combine all those softwares into one platform, which we purchased last year. It was Phoenix software. The biggest hurdle we're getting over right now, and especially with this COVID taking up most of our time writing policies and procedures and changing our direction, is we have to populate data to fill the new software we got, which there's going to be a changeover period. So probably in the next year to 2 years, the old software and the new software is going to be basically mirroring each other until we find it's effective and everything is populated properly. And then we're going to switch over to the new software.
Okay, so it was two parts to that question. Why was that line overspent last year?
It was overspent because we transferred money to buy the software that originally wasn't put in.
Okay. So I had a few more questions, Director, that you kind of skipped over. Council President, you want me to go back to them, or how do you want to handle that?
Yeah, last meeting, we had the clerk that was able to get Sherry, were you able to get those questions down? Because there were some questions that were missed. Last meeting, we were able to have the clerk kind of make sure that the questions were heard and to repeat those so that we didn't have the back and forth.
The only question I had missing was the social distancing in the fire department.
Also, the budget line question about the chief's expenses was missed. And then the 2 fire education questions.
Okay.
The budget line for the chief expenses should read deputy chief expenses. Those are expenses that occur when the deputy chief assumes command when I'm not here on vacation, and if he has to use any sort of expenses that I would normally use, then he would take from that line. So it should say deputy chief expenses.
Can you give some examples of what they would spend that on?
It could be reimbursement of travel. If you register for, a class, things that I would normally do under my budget line. Food for a fire, coffee, things of that nature when guys are out in the cold.
All right. Thank you, Councilwoman, for that. We'll now go to Councilwoman Joylette Mills-Ransom.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening, Director Childress. And I apologize. I was on my tablet as opposed to the Surface Pro because I was getting better lighting on it, but it kept going in and out. Definitely, I want to echo the sentiments of those who have spoken before about the great job that the fire department is doing. And you know that I have a soft spot for it, having a brother that's been over 30 years in the fire department, in Plainfield's fire department. Yeah. My question is basically just one of clarity, probably because I think I know what happened, but I'm not sure. And it's based on salary lines. When I look at a fire lieutenant who had 82,000, I'm just rounding off numbers maybe, in 2019, and then goes to 105,000. I'm on page 4, about 11 down. The next time, that's quite a jump. Is that because the person has come from a firefighter to fire lieutenant?
Yes, that's the difference between, there's a step program that they have in their contract. So based upon how many years a firefighter's been here, 82,000 sounds maybe about step 6 or somewhere around there. Mm-hmm. So depending on what time he gets promoted in his career, he goes from that step until the step of the first lieutenant. But actually there's a contractual dispute with that right now. But that's the basic answer, is that he got promoted, and that's the difference between the grade that he's in and the new position title.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. We'll go to Vice President, we'll go to Councilman Sean McKenna.
Excellent. Director Children, I'm just so people here, I'm on the fire committee, so I review a lot of this information with the director. But a couple of things I did want you to walk me through again the overtime bump here, because it's north of 30% over last year, and last year was pretty significantly down over the year prior, to the tune of about just short of $300,000 down, and now we're going back up over 30%. And also, I'd like to get a feeling for what happens to the salaries and wages with respect. In fact, why don't you just take that overtime one, and then we'll go to the next one.
No, Director, I'd like him to ask his questions.
Actually, Council President, you don't have the authority in your title to adjust how I ask questions. It's just, you just don't. So,
But I do have the authority to tell the director how he'll answer.
okay, well, then he can answer the question that was asked, and then I'll ask him another one. That's how this is going to work. You don't have the authority to adjust how the questions are asked, nor do you have the authority to limit the time. It's a 10-minute.
But I will.
My questions, I can ask follow-ups, I can adjust my questions. It's how that works. So that's how I'm going to do this, because Steve, you don't have the authority.
But I will.
Municipal code, nor under Robert's rules. No, there's been no change to it. You can't unilaterally do it.
I changed them.
The director would
So
like to.
if you don't want to follow the rules, you'll be out of order, and then you won't have questions at all. That's fine.
You know what, Council President, I can't be
That's
out
fine.
of order
That's
when I'm
fine.
following the order. You're out of order because you don't have the ability to change the rules. You just don't have the ability. So I will wait for the director's response to that, and then I'll ask my other question.
I don't think it's going to work like that.
It's going to have to work like that, Council President. You don't have the ability to make the rules up. You don't. It follows just like every other meeting. We follow Robert's Rules of Order. I can ask a question and repeat from there. I mean, that's how that works. There's no changing of because you want to change the rules. It's just not how it works. It's not in the municipal code, which is what we follow, and you're out of order.
So, Councilman, we're going to do it my way or no way. So I'll give you one more opportunity to just simply ask the questions. I really would like your input. If you don't want to do it the way that that I have prescribed as Council President, then you just won't ask questions at all. And I personally, I would not like to do that. I think you're a valuable council person. You ask good questions. This is simply just a matter of form, but you're choosing to fight over rules when last week everybody got their questions answered. We didn't have any issue with the format. And this week, for some reason, you're having a problem with the format. Trying to get as many of your questions answered as possible, but just trying to keep some order in this. So I'd like to give you an opportunity to do that. All right. But, you know, we can try this one more time.
So here's how this is going to work. I will figure out the next step that I'm going to take. Last week, I didn't get all my questions answered because there was a 5-minute limit. So if you're going to push this process that is inappropriate and against the rules, and you're limiting my ability to perform as a council person, then I won't ask any questions.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
We'll move to Vice President Armati.
Thank you, Council President. And thank you, Director Childress, for the work that you guys do over at the fire department. I just have a few. So I know that for 2020, one of your initiatives was the drone program. So I wanted to know, like, is that something that's currently in effect? How much that will cost and what your estimated time to complete? At least under page 1,
You're breaking up.
your contractual pay increase is from 9,700 to 14,000. So I wanted to know what warranted that increase. And
You have to repeat that. You broke up.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, so on page 1 of the budget, under the fire division, contractual pay went from 9,700, the request, to 14,000. So I was wondering what warranted that increase.
Councilman Armati, you're reminded as well to ask all your questions that you may have in succession. If that's all you have, that's fine.
Thank you, sir. It was 2 questions.
All right, let him. Did you hear both questions, Director?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay. The drone program is still going ahead. We have to send our people out to get the FAA 107 license. Right now, they're not taking any tests because of the COVID pandemic, so you can't go to the location and take the test. But we have gathered rules and regulations and policies from other departments. We're analyzing those, creating our own policy on how they're going to be used, when they're going to be used, and making sure that they're in conjunction with the FAA laws as they are now. So that's still full stream ahead. We have the drones in our possession. We just have to get the people licensed in order to use them.
Okay.
For your other question, prescription. That's prescription and contractual. That 9,700. It was 9,700 appropriated for that year. We used $6,717. The officers now get the same contractual prescription, so that's why it went up to 14,000. It's a contractual issue.
Okay.
That they now receive the same amount of for their prescriptions.
Okay. So, Council President, I don't have any further questions, but if Councilman McKenna wanted to ask his, I could yield the balance of my time to him so he could ask whatever questions he has.
Okay.
I appreciate that. I just object to the format, so thank you, though.
Okay.
That was very kind of you, Councilman, Vice President. And all council members do have that ability to cede time to make sure that everybody has the amount of time that they need to answer their questions. All right, Director, I just have just one question, but I do want to commend you and the fire department for all the work that you're doing and protecting us and keeping us safe. You have a stellar fire department there. So I thank you. So please give my best to all your men and women. So one thing, the overcost time, I noticed that there was $765,000 budgeted, but we only spent $540,972. So that was a significant savings in keeping your overtime costs down, which we know is something that really affects the budget, that overtime expense. So kudos on saving that. Can you just walk us through the steps that you took that helped you keep the overtime costs down? And if there's anything that you can do or you can recommend to us in the future, so that we can continue that or even increase the reduction of overtime costs.
Okay, the first thing we did was restructure our sick policy. We were getting a lot of sick leave being used, so we restructured our sick leave policy and made it more stringent. So that in itself curtailed a lot of overtime that was due to sick leave. Second, when we could, based on our policies, the contract and civil service, when we could use an intern or actor from the acting line, we use those instead of calling in an overtime. So there's different situations where instead of calling in overtime, we can use an actor, as you see on that line. So that also helped it come down substantially.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, excuse me. Oh, and we have a extra officer, a maintenance officer that's in staff who handles the maintenance. That officer also rides throughout the week from 9 to 6. So if there's overtime, instead of calling overtime, he will forego his duties that day and ride, and that cuts down on the overtime. And we also have a battalion, one battalion chief and 2 deputies who also ride in the place of a battalion chief should he call out. And they would take that overtime that would have caused us overtime from 9 to 6. They now ride on the suppression, and that also curtails the overtime. And the other thing was we had a lot of different, we have more manpower. We've had 5 or 6 retirements this year. Every time somebody retires, that shorts the bottom. That means that somebody gets promoted, and then we're short a firefighter at the bottom. So we had a pretty, that year before, they hired 14 or 16. So they were almost fully staffed at that time. Since that time, for this year, we are now understaffed. So when we're fully staffed, overtime is low.
That's good. I mean, I thank you for your experience and you know, all your fire experiences. I think that's what it's been an asset for us in terms of that, and it's yielding dollars and savings for the city of Plainfield.
Thank you.
You know, all I ask is that, you know, as we move through this project, you know, we'll be done after the CBAC comments. Robin Bright is coming up next on the behalf of the CBAC, but just, you know, continue to look at your budget in light of the pandemic to see areas that you can cut. You know, I've heard from many council members who have indicated that they want to see some reductions. My preference personally is to see some of those reductions come from, you know, the division directors, department heads, because you know your departments best. So rather than have me or the finance chair or any other council person cut, I would prefer you make those difficult cuts. But you know, each council person can decide for themselves how they want to do it. But that would be my preference. So you know, just a heads up to just continue to look through your budget to see where there can be savings for our taxpayers. Okay. We'd like to next move to.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Next move to the CBAC chair, Robin Bright. Just a quick note, Robin. I know, you know, we've been speaking for a few minutes now. I did ask you after the last meeting, we had just a couple questions from the CBAC, just to have your lines remaining open, whether it's email or text, so that CBAC members, if they came up with any last minute questions, that they can also get those in because of the format. So I thank you for agreeing to do that. So welcome today, and we look forward to hearing from you. I think we can't hear you yet. Even although you're not muted, I don't hear you. Not yet. On the back end, do you see any issues with why we can't hear Robin Bright?
I'm not seeing the audio icon next to her name. I'm only seeing that she has.
Correct. All we see is the camera.
Yeah. I see that as well. Perhaps you don't have a microphone on your computer, or you, yeah. Yeah, you should call in. Call it, the number that you have, there's a call-in number. Yes. Yes. Please call in.
Then I have to mute though.
Did you dial the numbers yet on your phone, Robin?
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Thank you.
You're
Sorry about the snafu. First of all, I'd like to express from the feedback that we didn't have lots of questions for the fire department. We're very pleased with the work they do and their budget. We did have one question though, and I believe Director Childress addressed it, and that was on the acting pay. We see there was an increase from last year from 20,000 to 50,000 for this year. And in connection with that, the salary and wage, the overtime, you addressed that with Councilman Hockaday, and you said the reduction in overtime pay was due to restructuring a sick leave policy, and when you could use acting personnel, you did. However, you're still budgeting approximately $174,000 higher than what you actually spent last year. That combined with the increase to the acting pay, and if you could just speak on that, on those two.
So
go right ahead.
That is that's based on the fact that we were now at each retirement we become short. So we base that on the fact that at that time we were short, not knowing whether we were going to get those eight or 10 firefighters that we need. So we have to budget for the overtime in that case. And unfortunately, what happened was the pandemic hit, and now those firefighters are not able to go to the academy right now, which is going to push that time even further back, which means that we're going to be short 10 firefighters, and we need to be appropriate that amount of overtime in order to compensate for those people that we don't have.
Okay, thank you. That would say I don't have any follow-up questions from any feedback members. So that was it. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Director, you are relieved. We have concluded the fire portion. We are next going to move to Public Works.
Thank you.
With the
Thank you,
Department,
Director.
with the Department of Public Works, please bring their budget overview.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. And Director Dabney.
Good evening, Council President Huckaday, Vice President Almaday, council members, CBAC Chairwoman Bright, CBAC Commission, cabinet colleagues, my dedicated staff, general public, and of course, the Honorable Mayor Mapp. The Department of Public Works is comprised of the following 6 divisions: Division of Public Works, signal, engineering, recreation, inspections, and the senior center. With an overall 2020 operating budget request of $7,287,978, which $6,080,840 is for salaries and $1,207,138 for other operating expenses. This budget was prepared by the Department of Public Works, and a budget meeting to review all division budgets within the department was held on January 14th with the Finance Department. I bring this budget date to everyone's attention because it predates the COVID-19 pandemic. With that said, although we are not going to discuss tonight in detail what we are considering to cut and or reduce right now, please be advised that all department heads have been instructed by the mayor to make significant bare to the bone cuts, reductions, where applicable, line item by line item, with exception of essential services. As a result of these instructions, my division heads and I are reviewing each line item and will remain cognizant and mindful that these tough decisions have to be made without interrupting the vital and essential services that we currently provide to the residents of the city of Plainfield on a daily basis. Our goals and objectives in all departments of public work divisions is to continue to enhance the quality of life relating to all services provided by this department, and to assure that the health, safety, and welfare of all employees when it comes to social distancing and the wearing of masks in the office or the field are adhered to. This COVID-19 pandemic has delayed and altered all of our professional and personal goals, objectives, and current lifestyles globally. Our division, under these COVID-19 conditions of public works crews under the leadership of Superintendent Louise, must be commended for a job well done. They have continued to provide services without interruption on a daily basis from the onset of this COVID-19 pandemic. All employees have been assigned separate vehicles as we enforce employee field social distancing in addition to the daily disinfecting of these assigned vehicles. One of the main goals and objectives within the Division of Public Works and Engineering is to continue enhancing our infrastructure. To date, we have milled and paved 111 streets, totaling approximately 41 miles. 107 road miles up to 87 city road miles in the city, so that's just about halfway there. We will commence the milling and paving, reconstruction of Prospect Avenue and St. Mary's Avenue over the next 2 months. In addition to focusing on road striping, school crossings, crack sealing, and street signs replacements. Our signal division under Director Cruz will continue servicing and providing routine maintenance to the city-owned 224 traffic lights stations, 201 municipal lights, poles, fixtures, 107 decorative street light poles, and work in conjunction with PSE&G to process and repair any outages of the 3,255 PSE&G owned light poles. This is all part of the mayor's Light Up the City Plainfield initiative. Signal will also be assisting the Division of Public Works with the replacement of stop signs citywide as needed. To date, we have 708 stop signs citywide. Our Division of Engineering will continue applying for grant funding to offset projects costs within our capital budget. We have projects such as a new synthetic turf multi-purpose field coming in the near future at Rushmore Playground, and we'll be milling, paving, and reconstruction Prospect Avenue and St. Mary's, as I said earlier, with NJDOT and CDBG grant funding this spring. In addition, in order to be in compliance, City of Plainfield's floodplain manager is mandated by FEMA and NJDP to review all structures in the flood zones and adhere to the city's adopted flood prevention ordinance. Floodplain manager services are needed to remain in compliance. Noted on line item 226 of this engineering budget, something that we must do. Division of Parks and Recreation, as all budgets within the department, was submitted prior to the COVID-19 pandemic. As a result of this pandemic, in order to safeguard the health, safety, and welfare of the youth, adults, and seniors, some tough, thought-out decisions will be made in the near future regarding the cancellation of programs and events where social distancing is involved. Current online programming will continue and be considered based on the past participation rates for these activities. In addition to consideration being given to the summer food program and the state allowing grab-and-go lunches to avoid social distancing issues, the recreation superintendent will still monitor all parks throughout this pandemic to ensure that the scheduling of all needed repairs, field maintenance, playground equipment, inspections, and repair are adhered to. Division of Inspections budget has been divided into 2 units, property maintenance inspections and uniform construction code inspectors. The budget has been divided to meet the needs of both units. The decision to separate the 2 units was made prior to the COVID-19 pandemic taking place. It was based on the overcrowding in need of space currently occupied by the PPD narcotics. Right now, with the social distancing programs we need to find space for 19 employees up there. We have space maybe for 8 to 10. So this is an ideal time now. We have no choice. And again, prior to this pandemic, this took place. We were looking to move because of the City Hall, everybody traveling in and out of City Hall, and it'd be more proficient for us to have employees in 2 different locations at this time to make it better. And more so the social distancing now, that's just taking it to another level for us. So that narcotics building coming online will be beneficial for us to move over there, our UCC inspectors. And by the way, of course, we could be defrayed by permit fees. So that's beneficial to us to do that. And again, everything evolves around health, safety, and welfare of all the employees. And right now it's so tight where they're working in inspections. To put 19 people up there, we've been fortunate. But however, this COVID-19 will make us think about what needs to be done. Again, I can't say enough about, we talk about health, safety, and welfare. So when you see that $50,000 line item, that's over the year. And that's going to be needed. Can't put a price on quality of life for individuals. So this is important to us to make sure that we make this happen. It's beneficial. I'm talking to you, council, and we talk about tough decisions. This is a tough decision, and it's the right decision to be made because that space is needed for what our needs are. And plus, it frees up construction from property maintenance. Property maintenance can do their part, and it doesn't take much for a constituent or resident to walk directly across the street. It's right there on Watchung Avenue, 506, 508. And it's beneficial to everyone. And plus, it frees up the lines that we'll have upstairs because there's so much construction going on. City of Plainfield is a renaissance. Everything taking place there, I mean, it's proud to say. There's so much going on. And I can't say it enough that this will pay for itself. For the UCC, Uniform Construction Code, will do their part, and property maintenance will have their part. So it'd be good for everyone, 19 people, so we can break that up as opposed to what's going on. And it's beneficial to the tax-paying residents. When they go up there, they can get their permits processed, everything, they don't have to wait online. So it'll help enhance both divisions, units, I should say, within that division of inspections. So it's beneficial to everyone to consider doing this because it's best for everyone. And I can't emphasize enough when I talk about the health, safety, and welfare of the public and the employees themselves, because we have to do a lot with retrofitting our overall buildings as we talk about returning to work when the time comes. The reopening is going to be a major undertaking, but I will take care of it. And the mayor has tasked us to make sure it gets done, but there's a lot of things that have to be done for the benefit of everybody. Remember, everyone that I'm talking to, and put politics aside and everything else. We talk about a major pandemic here.
Yeah.
I've seen so many people I know that have gone on, and it touches my heart when we talk about what we need to do to make things better for everyone.
Thank you for that, Director. Let's take questions from council, starting with Finance Chair Charles McCray. You're still on mute, Councilman. There you go.
Thank you, Director Dabney. You guys do a great job, and I want to commend your department, John Louise, and everyone who works there. My question revolves around the Recreation Department. I see that Recreation has moved some senior recreation program from the Senior Center over to the new Performing Arts Center. And just wondering what was the logic behind that, given that seniors are in the Senior Center and we're trying to encourage seniors to participate at the Senior Citizen Center because of the wide variety and the breadth of programs that are offered at the Senior Center. Why would we take seniors away from the Senior Center when they have transportation to get there in the middle of the day? And also, for second question is, when do you think I will be able to get the actual participant report from the community pass that I've been asking for 2 years and have not gotten that information off of the community pass system? Because it seems like when I go through all your goals and objectives, the school system says we have about 9,000 youth in Plainfield, but we're servicing less than 100 youth here when I look through this thing. So can you address that, please?
Oh, yes, Councilman. The first question you mentioned about the seniors with I guess the Arts Center versus from the Senior Center. That's something I have to look into with Ms. Taylor, because I don't know if there's just something they like the programs and they want to go over there for the programs. I mean, that's something. Now, seniors are everything to us. We cherish them. So I have to look into that part with the seniors and find out what's happening. And I'm sorry. And the next question was about the community pass. I will talk to Ms. Taylor too about that to see if we can get the information that you requested. And everything for us is based around participation. We want to see that go up to the roof with everything we do. And of course, right now, as you know, with this pandemic, a lot of things will be delayed. We'll be doing a lot of virtual programs, whatever, online to make things work. But I'll look into everything you asked, and I'm quite sure we'll have the information.
Thank you.
All right, any follow-up questions? If not, we'll move to Councilman Barry Good.
Good evening, Director.
Good evening, Councilman.
I'll be as quick as I can, realizing that there are others behind me and there is a time limit. The audio was kind of distorted when you started mentioning about the roads, the milling and paving. And the question that I have for you, as far as our goal for 2019, have we reached our goal with the milling and paving? And if not, where are we with that? That's my first question. And of course, there is no secret that during this pandemic, and not just so much Plainfield, but throughout the nation, that sooner or later, someone will have to be proactive and talking about cuts and so forth. And our council president said it earlier. He mentioned something about that. So it probably will be wise and be proactive that the different departments, including yourself, would make suggestions. And I understand that, of course, that we're putting the cart before the horse when we discuss that, but it is no secret that this pandemic has giving us a left and right hook, and down the road, there are going to be some decisions that are definitely going to be made. With COVID-19, how will this affect, another question, this affect your seasonal workers? Will you need them, or will you use the workers that you already have? I also want to say I'm certainly glad that we have an inspector. I don't know if it's plural or singular, but we have an inspector on the weekends, because it appears that when the weekend comes that they feel that Big Brother is not watching, and that's when everyone comes out and do what they shouldn't be doing when they should have permits and so forth. I want to give a shout out to the recreation department. The Easter baskets or the Easter bags or packages that they had for the children. I thought being that the pandemic was the way that it was a great effort on their part to make sure that our young people were not shorted to receive their candies and Easter bunnies and so forth. As far as our senior centers are concerned, the senior center is concerned, there's 150 seniors that come through that center every day, and they have not been able to do that. So I'm hoping and that there will be no cuts to or nothing different concerning the senior center, because even though I do know that Ms. Peterson will probably know what's best for them. She has always been on point with that. And that's about it. I think I've asked maybe 3 questions. I think you guys do a great job. Shout out to John Louise. I can't shout out to John Louise without shouting out to the people that he works with. And of course you, Mr. Dabney, being the director, doing the way things that you do, and certainly all the assistance that you supply is appreciated. Council President, that's all.
All right, thanks. Director, please take
Thank you,
the question.
Councilman, for those kind words. Let me remember most of the things you asked me, because the first thing, the streets. The goal and objective for these streets from the mayor's plan is we want to mill and pave every street in the city. Unfortunately, we have other projects that come up that we have to take care of. And right now, we're going to do with the Rushmore turf field. That's going to be amazing. It's going to be a beautiful site. Once everything is back to normal one day, it's going to be excellent for everybody. But the milling and paving, I'm going to reiterate the fact that we're halfway there from the milling and paving that we've done in the city. And there's 2 streets coming online during this spring and summer, St. Mary's and Prospect. Okay, and that's going to be totally constructed, both of them. I'm sorry, there was another question. I don't want to.
He also asked about the seasonal workers in light of COVID-19.
And that's a good question. Seasonal workers, of course, more so than ever, we're looking at everything in our budget to make cuts where we need to. But as you know, a lot of things we do are essential. And what we're trying to do to cover, I'm sorry, the workers that we have, wherever we have to make bare bones cuts, we will. However, some seasons are good for us. What we're trying to do as we disinfect buildings, a lot of things that we do to make things better. This COVID-19 virus is really something else, as we all know, in this pandemic. So it's a lot of things we're going to look at to try to address, Councilman, but we're always going to put, and the mayor want us to do this, we're putting the residents first when we do this, and of course, making sure the employees are safe too. Anything involved around social distancing, we're going to make sure we address it accordingly. So, and monitor everything and make some tough decisions where we have to and need to.
Director Dabney, thank you so much, sir. Council President, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to next go to Councilman McKenna.
No, not I appreciate it though.
Okay. Next, I'd like to go to Councilwoman Joylette Mills-Ransom.
Okay, good evening, Director Dabney.
Good evening, Councilwoman.
I would like to thank you on behalf of my constituents in terms of every time there is a need and I come to you, you answered their concerns. I have 3 areas that I just like you to make statements on or tell me you get better. No, one is just a statement. I am so glad that Rushmore is going to be on the agenda this year. When I came on council, one of the first items that I had to deal with or to be part of was the concession stand there. And that was a great boom for that area. But now that more is going to be done in the fourth ward for Rushmore, it's just really great. My questions, one is overtime. If you could make a statement about what that covers. And the second one and final concern is the seasonal employees for the recreation department. It's at the same amount, which is $363,700. I am concerned about what that covers. So if we could get some information on the categories, hours, places, and numbers served for that particular amount of money. That's quite a lot of money.
Okay, and that's a valid point, well taken. And right now, I'm gonna revert back to COVID-19, Councilwoman. Right now, it's a pandemic. I mean, some real tough decisions, gonna be made based on everything we're doing, and anything that involves around social distancing, we're going to address and look at everything that we categorize and where, costs should be cut for everything. I can just assure you this, that there's not gonna be much overtime.
Thank you.
In any department. In my division, any divisions within my department based on what's going on. Because I just keep reiterating the fact that we're talking about bad to the bones cutting of everything. So, I mean, I hope that covers most of the things your concerns are, but everything that's there is going to be revisited. And that's with every division, not just recreation. And again, everywhere we can cut, we will be cutting. And as we make these tough decisions and tough cuts, we're also, considering that we do have to buy still service, we have a city to run. And it may make that clear to us all. We have to make sure that we touch on it, look at everything, and make the right decisions that's going to benefit everybody. Because at the end of the day, it comes right back down to, and I'm just stuck on this, like with this pandemic, health, safety, and welfare of employees, the general public, and everyone. So that's how we want to look at everything and address everything. Councilwoman.
And
Thank you, Director.
If I could come in and help, or with regard to the seasonal employee, that category is for people who work 6 months or less. And it can cover everything from athletic programs to camp counselors to lifeguards, you name it. We use seasonal workers even in the yard. But it's a category that is fairly broad, and it represents those people who tend to work 6 months or less.
Right, and I agree. Thank you for that, Director West. And touching upon that, right, we'll use whatever we can do that doesn't involve a lot of social distancing. We will, we'll take that approach with those workers. That's the main concern to see because once the weather starts really breaking, and I don't know if Police Director Burgess is on the line, but it's going to be tough for the police and everybody to make sure that we address this like the mayor wants to, slowly, how we go about it, and with the workers and seasonals as well, how we use them, because it's a lot to be undertaken. So, yes. Did I answer Councilwoman Mills-Ramsden? You okay?
Thank you, Director. Let's move to Councilwoman Davis.
Yes. So thank you, Director Dabney. There's a special place for the Department of Public Works in my heart. I'm glad to see that you have your whole team here. It is my hope that they can help to answer some of the questions, so we can have all of the questions answered tonight, not only for the benefit of myself and the other council members, but for the benefit of the public who is also watching. So I do have a number of questions, and they're kind of broken up by the different divisions within Public Works. So I'll try to go through all of them pretty slow so you can have them written down. So in your office, the director, so first and foremost, can you just speak to what staff has been doing while they've been working remotely? Just kind of give a sense of what people are working on during this time of working remotely. Also, in your department, in your office, why has the professional training and staff development line been so underutilized? You spoke to the flood maps. Has the FEMA maps been updated? And do we have a timeline of when those might be updated? for the Division of Public Works, can you speak to why the uniform line was so overspent by so much last year, and also why was it budgeted for so little? For the signaling division, if you can speak to why the acting pay was overspent. I see that the signaling superintendent retired. Is there a plan to replace that position? Also, I see that the signaling tech 2, the salary increased by $16,740 between last year and this year. If you can speak to why that is, because that doesn't seem to be on par with the 1.5% contractual raises that only $5,880. If you can kind of speak to why it's so low. Even pre-pandemic, how many employees or how much work were we going to get out of such a low seasonal? For the Division of Parks and Recreation, a lot of their goals were related to aquatics program. We announced that their pools will be closed for the summer. Will the municipal pools in Plainfield be open, or will they be closed? Also, how has the pandemic affected the youth, the Careers and Recreation Club, the umpiring class, and the referee class that were referenced in Recreation's goals? Has the Shut-in Council received more services? Has the Shut-in Council increased their services during this pandemic, and how are they doing as a council? How will recreation services change and adapt in our new normal? I know we did have some boredom buster videos, some senior exercise videos, but how are we going to continue that? Will there be a 4th of July parade this year? If you can give us a status on Milt Campbell and the ADA playground. Also, why was the stationery printing and office so overspent in the Division of Parks and Recreation? And I know you talked about Rushmore getting the much needed upgrades. Is that going to continue with the foreseen budget challenges that we have? Because I know that it was a grant, but there was a matching component to that grant. For the Division of Inspections, how many more summonses have been given this year as opposed to last year? And you spoke about moving their offices to Watchung Avenue. You budgeted for $50,000, but we see when the police rented it, the rent was only $37,350. So if you can kind of explain the discrepancy in those two figures. For the senior center, a lot of the goals that they listed is reflective of the work that they're already doing. So if we can have like actual goals of things that they're trying to obtain, as opposed to just the work that they're doing. Also, if acting pay, seasonal employees are never used in their budget, why do we continue to put in that request in the budget? Why is the senior center paying for postage when the purchasing department takes care of postage for the rest of the city? What expenditures are in the maintenance and rental line? And they have multiple clerk drivers in the budget. Are those because those are current employees? Are they looking to hire more employees because they only have 2019 salaries associated with them? And so those are all, thank you.
I'm going to need a few days to answer them, Councilwoman. Working remotely. But employees were assigned and given computers to work remotely. They're doing the work that they would normally do in the office. They're doing it from home. I touch with them. I talk to them. They get things I need done. I mean, that's what they're doing. So they're earning their keep by doing that. They all have Surface Pros and they're doing the work via Surface Pro. So that's that. I mean, is that pretty much it for that? I'm trying to go through this whole list here.
We can have the clerk's office help to supplement to make sure we didn't miss the questions. I tried to write them down as well, so I'll help as we move forward.
What was about underutilized? Did the clerk get that one?
Yeah. Professional development staff, the budget was underutilized for that?
Yes, in the Director of Public Works office.
We need to do at the time. That's why that was underutilized. It wasn't that was underutilized. We just didn't need to move forward with certain things that need to be done.
The next question was the FEMA map and when it will be updated.
FEMA map. It's a good question, Councilwoman. That's a large undertaking because that's going to cost quite a bit of money to do that. The FEMA maps to update that has to be reviewed by our engineers and looked over with the floodplain manager as well. See what we need to do to make that happen with the floodplain and the maps. The maps it's also part of the Army Corps of Engineers. They get involved with that as well. So it's a combination of everyone, the NJDEP, FEMA, and the Army Corps of Engineering in terms of the flood maps.
The next question was why the uniform line was so little.
When you say the uniform is so little, we have 2 uniform lines. Too little. It was the 2,500. Just so you know, it wasn't that it was little. From salary and wages, funds removed from salary wages for the uniform over to the OE operating expenses budget. That's what it was. It was 38,000 moved to 28 because that 10 was moved to operating expenses. That's I don't know. That's all that is with uniforms. There's nothing else. I'm trying to figure out what you're referring to when you say that. What else?
Okay.
The next question was for the signals division, the acting pay in there and the signal tech 2.
Well, Signal Tech 2 is contractual. I mean, whatever the title was when he got the position. And 2 folks moved up. When you talk the superintendent, right now we have someone that's doing an excellent job. Mr. Cruz in a position. He's in that position for now, and eventually he will become the superintendent because he does an excellent job. The other individual, Mr. F, is under him. He's building into and doing his job. So they're doing an excellent job with the lights. We're lighting up the city all over the place. And I just want to commend them for what they're doing. That's why they're in those positions and they get the job done.
Point of order. If I can just clarify maybe some of these questions, maybe those 2 questions, Council President, is that okay?
Yeah, but you will have a minute to ask any follow-up
Okay,
questions.
that's fine.
So,
I'll wait.
all right, continue, Director.
The next question was regarding the use of the seasonal budget and how that was impacted with COVID.
Well, again, I'm gonna revert back to what I'm talking about with social distancing. Anything that evolves around that, where we have to ground for, those are going to be drastic cuts in budgets. We're going to look at everything to see where we are. And again, we're talking bad to the bones with a lot of different budget line items. But where we can find a way to do things for the children, that they come first, we'll make sure that happens in the safest way possible. Yeah, we're going to look at virtual programs, everything that we can do to make things better. But the key to everything we do is participation rate. Because we do have competition with outside, I mean, the national channels, et cetera, as we talk about exercise programs, everything we try to do, even though we want to try to make things happen locally, but a lot of things are out there. So we have to look at everything to see where we can talk about. Participation is the key to everything. And I'm with credit Ms. Taylor. She's been trying to do everything she can with some of those programs you mentioned earlier, Councilwoman. Yes, we have some programs taking place and have been going on. But again, all I talk about most of the time with everything is participation rate with everything that we do to see where we can go to make it, continue to make it better.
Okay, and the next set of questions were for Parks and Recreation. And the first one was whether or not the pools are going to be open.
And that's a good question. But again, I'm going to revert back to 2 words, social distancing. There's no way to control and have pools open based on what's going on now. No, I'm quite sure there'll be a date when the mayor decides to, where we'll talk about what the plans are in terms of the pools, et cetera. Again, it's back to the health, safety, and welfare of the children and everyone else. I mean, you talk about pools, there's no way to control social distancing with pools being open. And I've spoke about that with Superintendent Taylor. A lot of things we can, and there's certain things we can do and cannot do. Certain things that you didn't even have to make a decision, it just can't be done based on what we're talking about here with this pandemic.
Next question.
How will the recreation services change given the global pandemic?
Like everything else in the world changes with this pandemic. They're going to change based on, again, social distancing, us finding a way to do things virtually for everybody and make things happen the best we can. And if there are programs that we can do things that help us with social distancing, we'll look at it. We'll look at those programs. We're not saying we're not going to do things, but we're going to look at everything and dissect everything that's out there and make sure it works for everyone. Because nobody wants better than the mayor to make sure everyone has some we can exercise or enjoy and have fun. But at the end of the day, it still comes back to reverse to the health, safety, and welfare of everything and everything that we do. Okay, we got to look at everyone, look at everything, every program possible that we can utilize that doesn't hurt us when it comes to social distancing. We're going to consider doing everything, and that's not just in Plainfield. That's a global matter issue, statewide, etc. We're going to address every issue with that. To try to do everything we can because we want to see nice things happen. So I think it's going to get warm, so really hot. Temperatures are going to change. So we want to make sure that if there's something that can be done outdoors that doesn't hurt the health, safety, and welfare, that's what's going to be considered for everything.
Next was how is the pandemic affecting the Careers and Recreation Club, the umpire class, the referee class, and the shut-in council?
Well, I don't think anything would affect them. If it can be done virtually, we'll consider it. But there's no way to do the training that we would need to do, with everyone in a room. It takes it's a lot involved with that, the training, etc. So whatever can be done virtually, if it can be done, that's something I'll talk to Ms. Taylor about. There's things we will try to do.
Will there be a 4th of July parade this year?
Again, we're in May. I'm going to revert back to social distancing. Everything we'll sit down and talk about it. That's something that the administration will consider and talk about to see what can be done. And it goes back to the health, safety, and welfare of the public overall. Yes, we love parades. We love fireworks. We love all of that. But at the end of the day, the goal is to make sure that we can take it health, safety, and welfare for the public, everybody. Because, parades draw crowds. And with crowds, we can have problems with that. Causes more social distancing. Things happen. So we got to consider that and think about that. Yes, we love, again, the 4th of July, we love it. It's a great parade here in Plainfield. But however, the control, and we talk about saving money, the overtime involved in the cost, because you would have to have cops everywhere. It'll just be so bombarded. But I'm not saying it won't be done. Who knows what's going to happen tomorrow? But we live day by day, and we'll see what happens with that, with the parade and everything. And again, that's something that we'll sit down as administration and look at everything. And whatever can be done, as we all know, will be done.
The status of the ADA in Mill Campbell Field and Rushmore playground upgrades.
Rushmore playground upgrade started. We had a bid opening today, so we're looking to move forward with that. As far as Mill Campbell Field, I'm saying I believe to know what's wrong with the ADA compliance. You brought some to my attention. I will touch base with Ms. Taylor on that to see where we are with that. Whatever needs to be done with the upgrades, by all means, we're going to take advantage of that now, while the parks are closed. Whatever we can do to improve the parks and keep them closed until they can reopen, we're going to address all those matters and all those issues.
And the final question in recreation was, why was the stationery and printing line so high?
And maybe, I guess there was a lot of printing taking place in recreation. A lot of the various programs and printing. That's probably why that's so high. And I will discuss that with Ms. Taylor to see what happened with that, to address that. But I guess that was a lot of programs and that she had going out, and she was printing upstairs. So we'll look into that too, to make sure there's no reason for anyone to go over budget on any line item. So thanks for bringing that to my attention, Councilwoman. I will look into that as soon as I speak to Ms. Taylor.
So I have more questions.
There was more question I have down here.
Yeah. There were some under inspections.
Yes.
Yep.
What were the summonses last year versus this year?
Okay, I don't have that on top of my head, but we'll get that for you. That's something to do. And yes, and when you say summonses, property maintenance, what type of summons were you referring to? Like property maintenance? Summons? But that's all we'll give you. Okay, all property maintenance summons. We have that stuff in the system, so you'll have that sooner or later. Ms. Council here's just saying, so she's probably writing it down, and we'll get you a copy of that. That's not a problem, Councilwoman. All the summons that were issued. We keep a track of that. Yes, we do.
The rent for inspections for the property at Watchung Avenue, she asked why was it a certain price for the police department and another price quoted for the inspections department division?
Well, I don't know if it's like the price, because whatever the number was, I don't know what the number was for the police department, whatever it was. But remember, we're talking about year to year, another year. So the price is not, we budgeted 50,000, but the price was not, it was 30-something thousand for the first year. So each year, of course, there's a percentage increase. So it's not just the whole $50,000. That's the number we used just in case to see where we would be with that. And again, I want to reiterate the fact that this will pay for itself through all the construction fees that we bring in, permit fees for construction that we've been doing. We've been doing pretty well with that. And it does cover that and all the work we do, whether it be residential or development projects.
Next question.
Under the senior center, why is the senior center using postage when the purchasing division is supposed to handle that for the entire city?
Oh my.
Why are they using posting?
Postage.
Postage. Why are they using postage? I mean, everyone has postage they utilize. And what was the rest of the question? Sorry, I didn't hear the rest of that question. Why are they using postage? Because of.
I think
I didn't hear the rest of the question.
why was the senior, why do the seniors pay for postage when there's a centralized area where postage is paid for as well? So why do they pay for postage as well? It's a separate line item.
Well, I guess that's been there for the longest. I looked that up. I'll talk to Director Peterson to see what's going on with that and what happened with that. And I'll also discuss that with Director West and the purchasing department, because I'm quite sure that would be picked up in any audit that we conduct, everything that we do with postage and everything else. I mean, we'll look into that.
Next question.
The maintenance rental line under the senior center?
Describe
Okay.
that.
The maintenance rental line is maintenance you got to pay for. The maintenance, we lease the building from them, right? So we got to pay whatever maintenance there is for the building.
And then I have a question regarding the clerk drivers for the senior center.
What about the clerk drivers? I didn't hear. What about them? I'm just. They drive and they help out with work. They drive the buses and they have the CDL to do license endorsements to do the work. So that's they drive the buses and that's just a title they have. And they just do help with clerical, answer phones, etc. Whatever they do. They're at the senior center.
So that was the last question, but Councilwoman Davis, if there was any questions that you didn't think were adequately answered, you know, you can have the director redirect himself towards those questions and any concluding remarks you might want to make.
Okay, so just a few things. So with all due respect, I feel like multiple questions were not adequately answered. And Director, I will be sending these questions over to you separately in an email, just so I can get more clarification on them. Also, with the pool openings, we usually open up the first pool Memorial Day weekend. So for it to be May 13th and we still not have an answer on whether or not the pools are going to be open is a little problematic because we don't open up pools overnight. Also with the 4th of July parade, as I know, because I used to work in recreation, we don't start planning for that parade in June. We start planning for it now. So for it not to be an answer of whether or not we're going to have a parade, we're really just leaving the public in limbo, which is not fair to the public of this city. So if you can at least answer those two questions, are we opening up the pools this year? And if you're not sure, are we opening up at least one pool for Memorial Day? And are we having a parade this year?
Well, answer your question. So you just did that. You thought I didn't answer your questions, but I wouldn't do that. I always question. To answer your question, pretty much no. Based on the time frame, which as you mentioned, Memorial Day is a couple of weeks away. There's no way a pool's going to be open by that time, based on the social distancing. And 2, July 4th. There's no way to have a parade based on what's going on now.
Mr. President, may I respond to a part of that question?
Yes, you may, Mayor.
The administration will be putting out or putting forth a plan in terms of programs that will be affected across the city as a result of the pandemic. And we will not be putting things out in drips and drabs, but there will be a statement from the administration at the appropriate time on the impact of the COVID-19 virus on the entire city, on all programs, whether we're talking recreation, whether we're talking something in the police department. wherever those programs are, the administration, in concert with the council, will be putting out a statement at the appropriate time. The council president will be one of the first people to be made aware, but all council members will be apprised of the plan that the administration has and how it will be rolled out going forward, the impacts on everything that is happening in the city that is controlled or governed by this administration. Thank you.
That's all I was looking for.
Really? Okay. Okay. Really? Okay. Next.
Okay, who's next? Did we go to Vice President? Councilman?
Yeah, so just to follow up to what the mayor was saying, I would like, if you guys are able to share what the programs are that are affected, also share what the dollar amounts and savings that we're realizing, because obviously every little bit counts. You know, number two, I did want to just say, you know, extend my, just shout out the Director of Public Works for the job that he does. And as Chair of Public Works, I do want to, you know, say that it is great working with you and your team. I only have a few questions. First is dealing with the Quality of Life Task Force, which I think is great in terms of bringing different parts of the city together to address certain needs. So I wanted to know like how things were going in terms of addressing violations and what are some of the major successes that you guys have had. And then number two, we had a very mild winter. So I wanted to know if we realized any savings when it came to snow removal and that budget.
Okay. Were you finishing, Councilman? Were you finishing? I'm sorry. Were you?
Yeah, that's it.
The Quality Life Task Force, yes, we still go out there and try to address issues, but right now, based on this COVID-19, we try to address issues from the exterior, such as, you know, high weeds, grass, and everything that we see, anything that's visible from the outside. We're doing that, and there's been quite a few violations that was an issue. Here's a list that I can always give you to show that how it's increased with the work they've done and continue to do on a daily basis. So we can show you that. As far as the winter, yes, we had a mild winter, so whatever funds are there, that stays in that storm trust. Okay, nobody touches that. That stays there. And we never know what can happen because remember that money's used as well for we get a hurricane, a major windstorm or something like that. That money's used for all of that. So it's there for those purposes, you know, as well.
So, but as a follow-up, if it's not expended at the end of the year, is it transferred out?
No, I think it remains in that trust.
Okay. Is that something that can be carried?
In terms of that budget line, there was $29,000 that was not spent. It's a $130,000 budget.
Okay.
So $29,000 wasn't spent.
Okay, but
it was spent on supplies.
Okay, but if it's not spent, is that something that you can just carry over from year to year, or is it something you have to expend or transfer if you don't spend it?
If it doesn't get carried over. If you recall, we transferred additional money into the storm trust so that when a bad storm comes, we'll be in a better position to deal with it both operationally and from a budget perspective. You know, that savings, the $29,000, you know, if it remains it was unspent, you know, it may go into surplus next year, assuming there's surplus. Okay. But right now, we moved a whole bunch of money into the Storm Recovery Trust so that we would be ready for that next major snowstorm.
Okay. I would recommend, I mean, obviously if there's savings there, or, you know, we're not doing 4th of July and these other programs, all these dollars and cents are going to add up and would help alleviate, you know, any increase to the taxpayers. So I think it's prudent that we make sure, you know, we're documenting these so that obviously we try not to raise taxes as much as possible.
And Councilman, just so you know too, that's been made clear to each and every one of the department heads from the mayor. Cut the budgets bare to the bone. So right, every stone that can be turned, we're going to turn. Okay, we're going to make sure we do that with everything. Every line item by line, we're going to try to address wherever it can be a penny saved, we're going to do that.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Vice President, and thank you, Director. I have just a couple, a comment and some questions. The comment is, first of all, kudos to your department. I consider Public Works part of the individuals that are on the front lines of this pandemic. You have so many essential workers who, despite the limitations and the scaled down approach that has been taken in City Hall to maximize social distancing, everybody's continuing to work, whether it's at home, using their Surface Pros, or some who need to be in the office. Your department has continued to chug along even through this pandemic. And, so certainly congratulations, and we thank you for continuing to provide that vital service to residents, because, there's a lot of commerce that is going on, and whether it's realtors that call me, et cetera, they don't want any of that to stop. Again, especially as it relates to housing, this pandemic impressed upon many that, safe housing and so forth is something that we all need. And, many of us are privileged to have it, but there are some who may be in transition, and it's your department that helps to guide that transition to make sure that people can move into their homes, and making sure these essential inspections are done so that we can continue to house our residents. So just thank you for that. So I won't go much into the actual budget, because you've said over and over again that you're going to be turning over stones to see where you can cut costs. But I wanted to talk a little bit about wanted to hear you talk a little bit about your goals and objectives, specifically the body cams with the Division of Inspections that you hope to do. So I want to hear about how you think that will roll out, what effectiveness and efficiency it'll bring to your department using those body cams. And as well, you can comment on the GPS systems, how our investment in GPS systems for the field operation is something that will help the city. And then lastly, I want you to just speak about our transition to allowing people to make payments online with the city. So, it's been, I think it's been working so far somewhat. The process, people aren't allowed in City Hall right now. They're able to put payments, whether it's tax payments or permit payments, or something for the clerk's office in the boxes that are clearly labeled in City Hall, without going inside fully. But some of that would be alleviated if online payments were permitted. So I want you to talk about that transition, and when we can expect for those for online payments to be accessible to our community for added convenience, especially in light of COVID-19. That's the only questions that I have.
Okay, I'll touch base on the first two, and then I think refer with the cameras going online. That's something I'll talk with Ronald about. So it's the first thing I'll talk about. You don't mind, Council President?
Go right ahead.
The body cams.
Okay.
And plus the GPS, because there's a lot of similarities with the both of them, pretty much. The body cams is something similar to what the police department has. I'm looking to get our inspectors that are out there, because they get blamed for a lot of things. And it's large undertaking, because you see them, some people don't like them or they love them. They see them coming, they don't have an attitude. And plus, it comes down to three things. We have an acronym called SAT: safety, accountability, and transparency. That's the purpose of both GPS and the body cams. When they go to someone's property too, to check to make sure they're doing their job right. In addition to how they get abused from time to time. So it's a combination of things to make everything more effective and efficient with the work being done, okay, on both ends. Because now we have that data. When we come back, retrieve that data and have that information, so we can go into the system to see what was done, how much work was done, how much time it took to do a home inspection, or how much time it took to drive from City Hall to a location. It just makes you more accountable. And plus, it's a safety factor for them as well, the workers, because sometimes they get blamed for things they don't do. And just things they do that we don't know about. But it's a win-win for everybody. It works for hand in hand with everything we do. And that's why I think it's so vital to have this equipment to show what gets done and what doesn't get done. Because we want to monitor and see what's happening. Because I think no matter what we do in life, there's always room for improvement. So we want to see everything happen and grow and get better for everyone, for the employee as well as the homeowner. And that's the purpose of both of those, the body cam and the GPS. As far as the online going, yes, we'd like to see everybody go online because right now, like you said, we are going to a Dropbox, dropping things off. So I think that's something that's being worked on by everybody together between with purchasing. That's why I mentioned Mr. West, ourselves, and plus, I guess whatever Mitchell Humphreys, whatever we have to do to make it work. Because some of these forms we have, there's, you know, you have like, it's like a 3-set copy. So it's hard to do some things online. We got to work out how we can do that. And I'm no high tech guy. Everybody knows that pretty much, but I do think, you know, there's a way to do it and get it done. Because like I said, we're in the 21st century. So there's a way.
Let me speak in more detail about that. Prior to the pandemic, there was an RFP out to expand the online payment capability of the city. And just so that it's on the record, one of the key things, particularly since this is the Public Works Inspections and UCC segment, you know, there's a need to integrate online payment capability into Mitchell Humphrey, which is a part of the RFP that was out there. And so we are looking at both terminals as well as online remote payment capability with the people at home in a position to really initiate lots of activities, including paying, you know, from home. And so we stopped that RFP because of the pandemic, and it will be going out again next month. You know, and so, you know, now you're talking about the third or fourth quarter before we have that capability, you know, up and running. But it is a formal plan of the city. You know, part of the intent is, and it states it in the RFP, is looking for solutions that don't cost the city any money. You know, which means one of the things we're going to be looking at is the use of something called a convenience fee. You know, where for people who want the convenience of paying online, they'll make a payment for that. And the tools are built to allow that to happen. But that's what we're looking forward to with regard to online bill payment. We just have to get that RFP back out. It was delayed because of all that was going on with the pandemic.
Thank you for that, Director. All right, we'll move to the CBAC Chair, Robin Bright, to ask any questions that might have come from the various.
Council President,
Yeah.
I neglected to have bring to the director a follow-up question. So before our CBAC chair comes, can I ask that follow-up question? Is that possible?
Yeah, you didn't answer any follow-up questions, so you can have a minute.
Okay. Director Dabney, I do apologize. This was one of my questions, so please forgive me. How often does the signaling department go out to look at the lights to see the ones that are functioning, the ones that are leaning, the ones that are out? I have noticed in my traveling that some are leaning and some aren't working and functioning properly. So I just want to know, are they being proactive in going out and doing that? And that's my last question.
Absolutely. Yes, they are going out. I'm glad you asked that. Yes, they are going out and doing that. And we have, every now and then we have guys scheduled at night just to go out there and do a spot check and inspect all the lights that may be out or on.
And leaning.
Yes, anything leaning, they're definitely checking it and address the ones that are leaning. There was some problems with the underground, so they'll look at that and check the base. Some of the base is right out on the bottom, so they have to address those.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Council President, thank you for allowing me to do that.
Absolutely, I'd grant that courtesy to any of my council colleagues, so I appreciate it. CBAC Chair.
Hi, good evening, Director Dabney. Thank you for your time this evening. We do have some questions. some of them were already asked and answered, but I'm just gonna ask them again, and you could give me the Cliff Note answer.
Thank you.
For the in the Department of Public Works, the overtime year over year, that budget line seems a little heavy. Now, if you could just explain what's the driving force for the overtime. Also, how is the use of seasonal workers determined? On page 2, the equipment rentals, if you could just speak to what the equipment are looking to, what kind of type of equipment are you looking to rent? And recreation, the passport program, how were the funds allocated if the program was not implemented? In the goals for the passport program, it stated that it was not implemented in 2019, and we want to know how those funds were allocated. Also in recreations, are there any plans, programs for the consideration now given COVID-19, and how does this impact the budget? That was asked. On page 3 in recreations, we had a question about there's a line item for program expenses for $65,000, but there's also additional lines starting with 001-500 to 001-512 that includes different programs. So are those programs in addition to the $65,000? And if so, back to the original question, what type of programs are the $65,000 used for? In construction, we asked a question about the facility and has there been one identified? And you did answer that. You said it was 506, 508 Watchung Avenue. And the last question is for the senior citizens budget. There's a line item for seasonal workers, but there has never been any spend in that line item, but yet for the last 2 years, there's been a budget for it. So are there gonna be seasonal workers, and if you do plan to hire them, when and what will be their responsibility? There are some follow-up questions from some members who sent an email, and I'll just share them now. It's 4 questions. One is, why is requested overtime amounts increasing when they decreased last year? I think we just covered that one. Engineering, outside consultant services continue to increase. And have you considered hiring a city engineer? For recreation, they had a question of how many children were enrolled in the program last year, and what are the plans for this summer to provide programs that are safe, and have you considered what the cost would be to do that? Then they sent another question. Has the department started to devise a plan for the offering of the Recreation and Senior Center? If not, when are you going to start the planning process? And I believe they're saying is, do you just have programs designed for recreation and senior centers? I would imagine that's what they're saying. I could ask for clarification, but those are the questions. Thank you.
Mr. BA, did you get, on my side, she came a little broken up, I'm sorry, but I can hear some of it.
Oh.
I could hear a lot of it, Robin. I apologize. I couldn't hear a lot of what you were saying, so.
Do I need to repeat all of it?
No, I don't want you.
I think the clerk has them. If you could just start with the first question.
Yes, the overtime in public works, she said, was a bit heavy, and requested an explanation as to the overtime, as to why it's so high.
Overtime in public works comes with the storms we've had, and not just snow. Like I said, anytime a tree comes down, things happen that they go out there and clean up. We've had some storms that people don't even realize that trees have coming down, etc., where overtime is needed. Work. That's where that comes from. I mean, I vouch for them all the time, the work that they do. It's just commendable. And even with the disinfecting the buildings, we have to bring people in to do work like that. We've been doing a lot of different things since this pandemic and everything else. Chairwoman.
As far as the equipment being leased for the Public Works Department, what types of equipment are you looking to lease exactly?
Well, that's stuff that we do when we're doing our striping. Something can happen to demolition. We might get rent a machine for that. So it's all machine rentals that we do for equipment, for jobs we do, for road projects, etc. That's what that money is used for. That's where the rental comes from.
Robin, what was your last question under Public Works regarding the allocation of funding?
The use of seasonal workers, how is that determined?
Oh, that's great. I mean, that's a good question. Every year we want to supplement our workforce, especially when it starts getting warm with the cutting of the weeds, the debris in the streets. And now for us, more so now, Chairwoman, is the disinfecting the buildings, the systems, everything we need. So all hands on deck help us get things done and help supplement our workforce. That's how it's determined. The group of guys that sign up for it, and they come back each year and they do an excellent job. That's how eventually one day they become permanent workers. So it shows almost like a shape up type of thing.
Under recreation, the $65,000, what types of programs does that cover? And does that cover the totality of the programs for recreation?
Well, right now, let me go back to what I'm saying. That a lot of this is going to be looked at now and then changed. This budget was presented back in January when we did that. And now, based on what happened with COVID-19 when it hit, the pandemic, a lot of things are going to be changing with the overall budgets with everything. And yes, that funds were for just various programs that we've had in recreation over the years. I can get you a list of those programs they want to know. I mean, from Stella, and but that's program funding. That's what that is. That's what it is. And again, see back here, all this funding right now is going to be, everything's being looked at and being addressed, and we're looking to go bare bones with everything that we can in all budgets.
Robin, what was your second question under recreation?
Were there plans or programs consideration now given COVID-19 and how it impact the budget?
Okay. Under construction, it was had a location been located, and that was answered regarding Watchung Avenue. Next one was the seasonal workers. That I believe she said that budget or those positions weren't filled. And do you plan on using seasonal workers in the construction office this year?
In the construction office?
No, not in construction. That was in the senior citizens budget. There's a line item for seasonal workers for the past 3 years that was never used.
Well, right now we don't plan, again, anywhere we can reduce, we're going to reduce. So that's going to all be looked at. And, you know, of course, before we make decisions with where our seniors are considered, we want to make sure we look at everything now. But yes, if it's not needed, it will be addressed.
Already.
Has the city looked into hiring a full-time engineer?
No, we're better off with the way we do it now because we're talking about the salary, benefits, etc. We're doing well the way it is. I don't think there's no reason for hiring an engineer. The engineer we have is with us anytime we need them. And plus, again, we're not paying that health insurance, etc. So it's more beneficial to us to have someone outside.
Going back to recreation, I apologize. I believe the question was how many children are enrolled in the programs?
And that's a good question. Well, I'll have to get that answer for you to see what the participation rate is. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Director Dabney, I appreciate your participation. Thank you for that. You are now relieved. We are moving on to the Finance Department. Would the Finance Department please present its goals and objectives?
Thank you, Council President and council members. The Finance Department is comprised of the Office of the Director and the divisions of Audit and Control, Purchasing, the Tax Assessor, and the Tax Collector. Some of the key accomplishments achieved in 2019 were as follows: a record tax collection rate of 97.3%. We were able to regenerate over $7 million of surplus. Refinancing the city's bond anticipation notes in 2019 to bonds will generate $959,521 in interest savings. We had a single audit finding. We were able to maintain our Moody's MIG1 rating for bond anticipation notes and our A1 rating for bonds. And though it was completed in early January 2020, we successfully migrated a deferred compensation 457B plan from MetLife to Mass Mutual, which is a voluntary plan that a number of our employees participate in. Postage expenses came in 33.45% below budget, even with a 5% postage increase. And a lot of that had to do with the furthering of the usage of technology to move items to and from vendors. We processed 278 tax appeals. As a result of the pandemic, we are currently reviewing 2020 goals and objectives to see what items need to be modified. But the ones I'm about to mention are still critical priorities for the city. We're going to have to process 300 tax appeals this year. We need a tax collection rate of at least 97% to avoid issues. We need to regenerate at least 5.5 million in surplus, which is going to be a real challenge for us. We need to maintain the Moody's MIG1 and A1 ratings when it comes to financing bond anticipation notes as well as bonds. We're looking to sell at least 16 city-owned properties. We deferred that auction as a result of the pandemic, and as soon as we can, we will move forward and host that auction. We're looking to have 0 audit findings. We must complete financing at a minimum of our bond anticipation notes in August of this year. And as an ancillary item, because of its importance to us, we're looking to increase the Census 2020 participation rate over 2010 to at least 66%. And that's my number. That's not the mayor's number. His number is much higher than that. The overall finance team budget is down 2.71% from 2019, with salaries and wages down 0.99% and other expenses up 6.06%. The individual unit budget breakdown is as follows. The director of finance, the overall budget is down 14.19%. Salaries and wages is up 5.29%. Other expenses are down 28.77%. Audit and controls overall budget is down 0.095%. Salaries and wages is down 6.45%. Other expenses is up 27.38%, but that's really due to taking over the merchant fee expenses, particularly from municipal court. And then our audit expenses are up 2.4%. Purchasing, the overall budget is up 1.64%. Salaries and wages is up 2.64%. Other expenses is down 23.95%. And that has to do with the not budgeting for publications. Administrative services, other expenses are down 3.59%. And that's primarily made up of postage and equipment repair and maintenance. The tax assessor budget overall is up 3.8%. Salaries and wages is up 2.38%. Other expenses is up 15.14%. And that really has to do with a $5,000 increase, where we go ahead and get audits done or appraisals done of properties for our tax appeals. Tax collector overall is down 1.29%, with salaries and wages being down 0.68%. Other expenses are down 7.17%. With the key contributor there being equipment repairs and maintenance being down. And with that, I'll take any questions, because both Ricky Gartz and I are both here.
Thank you, Director. We'll start with Finance Chairman, Councilman Charles McCray. Unmute yourself first.
Yes. Okay. Good evening, Director. As the chair of the Finance Committee, I just have to say it's a pleasure working with you. Anytime that I've had questions or anything, you've had an open door policy and you've given me direct and concise answers. And I think you're doing a wonderful job with the finances of the city, as can be seen by how well our money is managed and our bond rating that we have here in the city. My question is that I hope you keep doing the best job that you're doing, and that we still will realize a lot of savings and efficiencies throughout your finance. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
All right, next we'll move to Councilwoman Ashley Davis.
Yes. So Director West, I have questions for your office, the comptroller, as well. Yes, just your office and the comptroller. So what's our census participation rate currently, and how is that going? What is our current tax collection rate? Why was no professional training used from your office last year? Why are outside consulting services for the Director of Finance office so high? And in the budget, it looks like there's a $10,000 raise for the Director of Finance. If you could just kind of explain that. For the Comptroller's office, why is there an overtime line, and that's a line that's never used? You mentioned briefly that the merchant fees were from the municipal court. If you can just kind of explain that a little bit more in depth. And I do like that purchasing, one of their goals is to increase minority participation in city projects. I think that's great, and I hope that they are able to really achieve that goal, because it's not a great thing just for them, but it's a great thing for the city. Thank you. Those are all of my questions.
All right, hopefully AJ took good notes, but let me start by saying through yesterday, our census participation rate is 48.8%. We're not happy with it, but we keep trying different tactics to get the public to respond. So you'll see more banners going up on the streets. We're going to be putting lawn signs up on various properties. There'll be more robocalls, and the mayor keeps helping us with all of the different town halls pushing that fact. But until we can actually get out before the people again, we're somewhat limited. Particularly trying or expecting that people are going to respond, just because we're reaching out to them, particularly those that are concerned. In terms of the director budget, I guess the best way for me to answer that is I think the director earned it. I don't have any more to say, to that, other than it was a decision made to make that particular move. With regard to the overtime line and audit and control, we're going to be looking at that, in more detail as a part of our initiative to see where we can make adjustments. The merchant fees, that's for credit card payments. And so that's what that expense basically is. And the court allows for credit card payments. And by law, you're not allowed to pass on convenience fees to those people making payments through the court. So that was that. Did I miss anything?
Did you answer what the current tax collection rate was?
Oh, I don't have a current rate. Now, what I can tell you, because we don't really track it that way, I can tell you that taxes month to date, we've collected just under 17,000, I mean 17 million $100,000. You know, and year to date, we've collected $44,000, $44 million. Let me correct that. $44 million.
The professional training line, why wasn't that used last year?
Well, there are two of us there. Many of the classes that that I participated in, you know, were done online for little to no money, you know, or I took advantage of the league last year.
The outside consultants line, why is that high?
The outside consultant lines is something that council has approved over the last couple of years. That's where we're primarily paying for the grant writers. You know, both Millennium and the Aubrey Group, you know, are there. So those are the primary consultants.
Those are all the questions.
Councilwoman Davis, you have any follow-up questions?
No, I do not. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. We'll move now to Councilwoman Mills Ransom. Still on mute, I believe. So check that. I'll see if I can unmute you.
I've tried. I can't unmute her.
All right, we'll have you see what you can do on the back end of that. Now I don't even see a camera. So we'll come back to her and go to Councilman Sean McKenna.
No, unless the format changed, I'm good.
Okay. Right. We will next go to Councilman Barry Good.
Director West, good evening. I don't have a lot of questions. But earlier in your presentation, you mentioned 97.3%. I thought that was the tax collection. Was that? Correct me if I'm wrong.
You are correct. 97.3%.
97.3, because later, I heard something that was a little bit different. Maybe it was on my fault. I apologize. I kept hearing down, what's down and what's down. With the pandemic and all that's happened within the last couple of months, I know you don't have a crystal ball. However, how do you see things going further, moving forward, as we are mid-year, not to mention the last 6 months will go by before we know it. If you had to look down to 2021, what would you see? And my last question would be, I understand that there are 278 tax appeals that are on or being looked at or being taken in consideration. So where are we with those? And do you have any results and statuses as of now?
I have no status with regard to the tax appeals. That process is just going to begin. And I don't understand at this point under what format, you know, because the applications were all due in April. So, you know, I'll know more in the next couple of weeks, you know, how they're going to move forward, because you know it's going to have to be done in some way, shape, or form in a virtual format. You know, but we will get through 278 tax appeals.
AJ, any other questions that were missed?
How long do they usually take, Director West, if you don't mind me asking?
I think it depends more on the complexity and whether or not the tax assessor agrees or disagrees with them. Those that get settled quickly are when the decision's made by the tax assessor. Those that take longer are those that end up having to go to the county and or to the state.
Where are we surplus wise right now?
Councilman Good, you're gonna need to condense your questions. But I'll allow that last question.
Thank you, Council President. I do apologize. I'm sorry for stepping out of.
Surplus is at this point just about $3.5 million.
Thank you so much, Council President. Thank you for allowing me to do that. I apologize. Director West, thank you. We are lucky to have you at the helm as our finance director, and we don't take you for granted. Trust me.
No, don't thank me. Thank Ricky Gartz, whose face is up there too.
Ricky, thank you so much, sir.
Councilwoman Gillette Mills Ransom, are you?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you a little choppy, but I think.
No, I had to go to my tablet. The Surface Pro died on me. Good evening, Director West. I do not have any questions for you.
Okay. All right, we'll next go to Vice President Armati.
Okay. So I know that you guys, we had a 97% tax collection rate last year. One startling statistic that I recently saw today, the Governor Phil Murphy put out that tax collection rates for the state of New Jersey is down 60% to the tune of $3.5 billion compared to this time last April. So I know that, you know, our goal within the city is to regenerate a surplus of 5.6 million, as well as to limit the tax increase, if there's going to be an increase, to 1.75% on each household. But number one, do we think that that's going to be feasible given what we're seeing on the state level? Obviously, there's going to be repercussions us here locally. Unless there is some kind of federal relief going on. I know the House just passed a bill, or I think they're set to pass a bill on Friday that will have some aid for states and local governments. Then if the Republicans don't sign on, like the Senate as well as the president, we are definitely going to be hurt by this. So I want to know, really ultimately, if we do not collect, or if we pass a budget as is, let's say, but we only collect, say, 70 million in taxes, what happens?
That's your only question, Councilman? Although you will have a follow-up if you like.
Okay.
All right. I should pass it on to Ricky, but I will start with it. You know, one of the things that the mayor mentioned several weeks ago is if we had a 70% tax collection rate, that would leave us with a shortfall in the area of $18 million.
Mm-hmm.
$18 million out of an $88 million budget. You know, you can do the math. That's a lot of people that we'd have to be looking at, you know, under consideration in order to meet a budget going forward. You know, I am somewhat optimistic that between the Republicans and Democrats, they will come up with this relief plan. But right now, this is being sponsored by the Democrats with very little support from the Republicans. But aid would be very beneficial for us, you know, because even the money we may recover in terms of our COVID expenses, you know, aren't going to be enough. We're talking about the need to, you know, get our revenues back, you know, in terms of court fees and, you know, inspections and everything else. And we want the public to be in a position to pay their tax bills.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the biggest concern we have is, you know, what is the pandemic really going to do to the residents of Plainfield? And will they or won't they have the ability to pay their tax bills? Mm-hmm. And that's the biggest concern I have. And that's somewhat of an unknown right this second.
Well, you know, just to follow up. So, you know, in my full-time role with the county as director of the American Job Center, I've been speaking with the Department of Labor to really take a look at how this is affecting Union County as well as the city of Plainfield. And I know that 3,600 individuals in the city of Plainfield alone have filed for unemployment benefits, which is startling. So the concern is once things reopen, are these people going to be able to readily go back to work? And will we be able to get tax monies from them? And also, like, my second follow-up, say that we have an $18 million hole, how do we rectify the situation, God forbid, later? Are we talking massive layoffs? How do we rectify the situation?
We would have to reduce expenses
Drastically.
drastically. At that level, at an $18 million gap level, we have to close the gap.
And is
revenues must match appropriations.
So, but are you talking about this going into next year? And like, you know.
Oh, now we're talking 2021 budget.
Okay.
Thank you,
But a 2019 potential problem too. You know, remember, right now we're trying to make sure that we meet the 2019 budget. There are revenues that we need to collect.
Would CFO Gartz like to chime in at all on anything that the director mentioned?
I would just like to follow up with the clarification on the 70% tax collection rate. The schools in the county get their piece of the pie, no matter what. So if it's a 70% tax collection rate, we're in more of a drastic state than the 18 million you speak of. We're going to have a deficit in operations because that 70 million would have gone mostly to the county and the schools, leaving us at a very, very, very big shortfall. So on a $100 million budget last year, tax levy, 70% only gives us $70 million, of which 26 million goes to the schools, and another 15 million goes to the county. That only leaves us with 41 million against our 59 million that we have in our budget. So there's an $18 million deficit that, if we have that cash deficit, keeps rolling forward until we can raise it and come up with a revenue stream that will supplement it, and or the layoffs that Mr. West, or the expenses Mr. West referenced to balance this budget.
Mr. President?
Yes.
What Mr. Gartz just mentioned is very important and something that all of us need to be cognizant of. Whether or not a taxpayer pays his or her taxes, we must send a check to the county, and we must send a check to the Board of Education for the full amount of their tax assessment. So a portion of every one of our tax bill includes an amount assessed by the county and includes an amount assessed by the Board of Education. And whether or not we collect, we must send them 100% of their assessment. And as the CFO mentioned, we are left holding the bag whenever taxpayers don't pay the assessment that is made up of the municipal, county, and Board of Education. So this could be a very, very challenging situation for the city of Plainfield. And when I made mention of the worst case scenario that we spoke of a month or so ago, which would show a deficit of roughly $18 million, that was not to alarm anyone. It was just being realistic and looking at a real case situation should taxes plummet as we expect them to do. But we're doing our best, and we're going to continue to monitor the situation very closely, carefully, and we're going to take steps to make sure that we are able to stay afloat. It's not going to be easy, and we need the support of the federal government. I saw some numbers earlier today that if Senator Menendez and the Republican co-sponsor were able to prevail in Congress and getting the support for municipalities, the estimate that we could receive is upwards of $16 million. So let's all hope, pray, and let's put pressure on our congressional delegation to push for the passage of that bill, because we need it, it's important, And it's going to be critically important next year in particular when we see the true effects of what COVID-19 has done to the city of Plainfield. Thank you.
And Council President, yeah, just one last comment. I just think it's in our best interest to work with the administration as well, you know, the entire council, to really see what we can do to make sure that we provide a level of service that the taxpayers deserve and is fiscally responsible. That's no further comments.
I agree with you, Vice President, that that's something that we certainly need to do and keep our eye on as we go through this process. And I appreciate your comments, Mayor, that you have made a commitment to do that and to mitigate the harm to taxpayers that they'll inevitably face, as well as make sure that the city remains in good financial saving. Director West and CFO Gartz, you two have done a stellar job in managing the city's finances. Yeah, mostly as indicated, you know, some people can argue over the tactics or the methods that we got there in terms of how the city is run, but the proof is in our M1G1 rating, you know, which is the best quality. So, you know, that's an A+, you know, so when you have a good student and they're getting all A's, you know, they should be rewarded. So, you know, I certainly applaud you and support the work that you've been done, and you know, so just thank you. Let me get to the questions. So with the auction that's scheduled, I want to know if you've explored any way to conduct the auction online rather than in person, so that we can actually move those properties for the city and realize some tax benefits. And also, you know, the last one is just a comment, again, just to double down on the census. I appreciate that you included the census participation rate in your goals and objectives. But just urge everybody to talk to everyone that you know to complete your census. You know, we're at a juncture now where the federal government is monitoring how many responses are in, and then they will begin to start to send the door-to-door census people to try to capture anyone that wasn't that hasn't sent in the census. I'm not certain if the people who didn't complete their census just haven't had time to do so, or didn't feel it was important, or feel some type of retribution or some blowback may occur from actually completing the census. I'm not sure what that reason might be, but in any event, we don't, you know, it'd be wholly unnecessary to have these census representatives come to your house when you can just fill it in either online or via mail with the census form that you've completed. So just go into the online auction question, and then we can move on.
My response to that is we're going to have to seriously look at that for the property auction. We've used online auctions for gas and electric. We've used it for financing. You know, selling bonds that way, and so this would just be one more step that we're going to be required to do in order to get it done in a timely manner. You know, we can't wait for the pandemic to get behind us. We've already postponed the initial sale, and now it's something we want to consummate this year, so we're going to have to probably move it to online. And so we'll make sure that that becomes the priority.
Thank you. You know, this will be a challenging couple of years. You know, you've been able to do textbook city management of finances thus far, and you've executed it to perfection. But now we have some additional challenges, and you know, but we will be supportive as the city goes through those challenges, and we are happy to have both of you on the team to make sure that you know, we come out of this with as least harm as possible. Okay, so we'll move to CBAC participation. CBAC Chair Bright, you may still be muted. I don't hear you yet.
You don't hear me?
I hear you. Yep.
You hear me?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Okay, great. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Director West. You've been very extremely helpful throughout this whole process. Whenever we have a question, you respond immediately. And we do appreciate that. We do have a few questions. And one of them was the outside consulting. And you already answered that. And you said it was basically for the grant writers. The other.
Hold on, Director, let her ask.
Yes, you're right. You're right. I'm sorry.
The community program, if you could explain the changes and the approach for the last 3 years, the budget line, it went from, there was a decrease. It went from, right here. It went from 166,750 appropriated and 145,498 used, and it went down to 40,000. So if you could just explain and give us a little overview on why the drastic decrease in that line item. We did have a question about the merchant fees that you addressed. You said that was for credit card payments. For the tax assessment office, the question was, what is driving the increase on this line item? It's line item 001-219. When historically it's only 50% was utilized. And that was it for Mr. West.
All right, well, let me start with the last one. I thought I had addressed that one, but that one is tied to, you know, the real estate appraisals that we have to get associated with tax appeals. You know, we have a slight uptick in the number of appeals. Therefore, we thought it advisable that we be prepared for, you know, more appraisals being required. You know, with regard to the grant writers, you know, the grant writers are the consultants that we use, and there are 2 firms retained for those purposes. The program and community initiatives, the reason for the major change is that the Cisco training classes were migrated to the Director of Communications and IT, and some of those funds went over there. But we also, you know, came to conclusion with regard to the 150th anniversary celebration, you know, and a number of community wellness events, you know, so that's done. You know, really when we look at community initiatives and what special things we need to engage in, you know, so it's got a variety of different purposes that we've used it for, you know, in the past. There'll be fewer of them this year, with the key one being since it's 2020. You know, we've been buying, for those of you who've been driving around town, you probably saw some of the billboard ads up there and things of that sort. I mean, we had 6 billboard ads. You know, we've got other things that we're doing. We had Hector Camacho Jr. come into town to help us with the Hispanic population. So there's a lot that there'll be less that we'll be doing this year, particularly in light of the fact that we have to use our dollars wisely. But it's really for those things that either have a programmatic and or a community good.
Okay, thank you. We have no follow-up question.
Okay, thank you. We'll now move to public comment. A total of 30 minutes has been allocated for public comments. If you wish to be heard, please hit the hand icon to be recognized. You'll be unmuted, and once unmuted, please give your name and address for the record. Each speaker will be given 3 minutes. The floor is now open, and we'll just give a little bit of time for individuals to raise their hands. We do see at least one person. All right. Ms. Burwinkle, if you can go ahead and speak.
Thank you so much. Mary Burwinkle, 1785 Sleepy Hollow Lane. First of all, I wish health and safety to everyone. That goes without saying. This is a really trying time. Second, kindly use common sense with your budgets. It is a bad economy, unprecedented for everyone. Please tighten your belts like all of us have to, and I know you know that. I've listened to this tonight. Third, please do not impose artificial questioning limits to silence city councilors from asking questions. This virtual meeting is an artificial and really awkward way to conduct meetings. Why burden department employees with remembering multiple questions? It would be so much easier if you just let people answer and let people ask their questions. And you know, shame on the mayor, sorry, Adrian, but in 2013, he was city council president. If the then mayor had interrupted city council and engaged in some of the behavior he's engaged in this year, he would have protested loudly and probably threatened legal action. You know, I'm sure that somehow Steve Hockaday didn't come up with this artificial questioning thing. So I would really appreciate letting people ask their questions. Sit down, talk, make a deal. Mr. McKenna was elected second ward city council person, in my opinion, and I supported him because I wanted an active questioner. More than 25% of the people in Plainfield live in the second ward, a lot of voters. You know, this is silly, and all you're doing is opening the door for people like me to write letters to the editor about how bad your practices are. And frankly, I'd rather do something else with my time. So thank you so much. And once again, I hope everybody is healthy because this is a sad time.
Thank you. We appreciate your comments. Okay, I think we have Alan next. If you would.
Yes, good evening. I hope everybody is safe and sound for each of you as well as your families, for everybody else here in Plainfield. I have a question I'd like to actually direct it to Mr. Gartz, but I think that perhaps Director West and the mayor might be able to chime in, particularly the mayor, because he's got the lengthy institutional knowledge. But I'd like to know, what is the legal basis for making direct payments to PMUA in the amount of $1.2 million a year in a manner that was not prescribed by the authorized interlocal agreement, nor was this agreement ever amended by both governing bodies?
Is that just that one question, Alan?
Well, I'd also like to know why you're paying for an auditor who's basically looked the other way for years and years and permitted PMUA to get money, that taxpayer money that was not supposed to be going to PMUA, but was supposed to be paying for disposal costs, which is what the agreement says. And money aside, I have to say that both the administration, not just this administration, previous administrations, and previous iterations of the city council, why they are so loath to get the tonnage figures and associated disposal costs that just for public information value would be valuable to the people and to everybody in the city who is looking at, you know, what and how they can improve PMUA. And other than that, I think that I've asked this question quite a bit. In more detail I've given, but I would like to, you know, get some answers. So what is the basis for making these payments that were not authorized by resolution and ordinance?
So
Local agreement.
thank you for your comments, Alan. At the conclusion of all of the speakers, I will allow either CFO Gartz or Director West or the mayor for that matter, whoever would like to take those questions and answer your questions at the conclusion of the meeting. So just allow the courtesy of the other attendees to get their public comments in, and then we'll come for questions of anybody or answers and responses from the administration. Thank you, Alan.
Council President, if I may, can I just get Alan to state his name and address for the record?
Oh, I'm sorry. Alan Goldstein, 939 Madison Avenue.
Okay. I thought that was you, Alan.
Okay. All right. So next up, we have Sam Cooper, who is now unmuted.
Good evening, Sam Cooper. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Name and address.
Sam Cooper, 90 Brokaw Boulevard, Plainfield, New Jersey.
Good evening.
Good evening. First, I would just like to say, as someone who has personally attended these council meetings in the past, I've been quite excited that we have gone to an online platform for the continuance of day-to-day business as usual. And I need to let you know, and I'm not going to point fingers, I'm not going to name names because I know each of you independently and personally. I just need to remind everyone that we can see you. Some people have actually sent me screenshots and videos of some of the facial expressions. I'm listening tonight, and it's not just council. I want to be clear. I'm not referring my comment to just the council. I'm referring to quite a few people who were on this call or who had comments or who work, within the city in various departments, that it came off a little off-putting. And I don't ever want anyone else outside of our city to have something to throw back at us, to say, look at them, or an aha moment of they can't even be professional within an hour or two of their own meeting. I just want to remind all of us, and that includes myself, that everyone is watching every single moment of our lives. We're either recorded without knowing, or we're in a forum like tonight where we are being recorded and being watched. And I just really want to make sure that everyone is mindful and respective of each other. I am certain there are other things that we would rather be doing than, locked and holed up in our homes and having to change the way we do business because of COVID. But as we move forward, I need for us to get better. I want to send out my disappointment with the PMUA in the blatant firing, they may want to say furloughing, of several of their employees. And I do understand that it is because of the monies not coming in based on people not being employed or otherwise. But the way they went about it was just not a nice practice, having people sign things so that they wouldn't talk when they've been fired. And some of them have been there 10, 15 years. It just really leaves a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths, and they can't even speak up for themselves. Regarding the 3,600 that Vice President Armati mentioned, I am quite certain that it is way more than that. I'm sorry?
Your time is up. I'll allow you to finish your sentence, though. Go right
Thank
ahead.
you so much. I just want to reiterate that there's probably more people that are unemployed than the numbers have actually shown. And I say that simply because the website has been unable to handle some of the traffic for people to get that. So I wish you all well tonight. I hope for safety. I hope that everyone is practicing social distancing, and I hope to see you all in person very soon.
Thank you for that. Let's see. I see Tim Priano. Okay. Next person.
It's Timothy Priano.
Yeah.
1405 Martine Avenue.
Thank you.
I want to say that I'm not happy with the way Councilman McKenna was silenced tonight. By silencing him, you silence my voice and all the voices of residents in the second ward. This is not done. We all understand Robert's rule. We had Rebecca Williams as council president years ago, and Rebecca knew Robert's rules, and council was run properly. Everyone needs to read the book and understand how to run a meeting. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, let's see, is there anyone else? All right, seeing no more members of the public, may I have a motion to adjourn?
You need the motion to close public comment.
So moved. So moved.
Council President, I think you were going to have the questions answered.
Oh, thank you for that. Thank you for that. I appreciate your input there. Director, either CFO Gartz or Director West.
I'll take it. Today, May 13th, 2020, I don't have anything, to add to the legal question he's asked. This is an ongoing question he's been asking, and there have been different legal opinions provided. And so I don't know anything different today, to be able to answer his question any differently about the $1,200,000 that gets paid to the PMUA.
CFO Gartz, do you have anything further regarding that?
No, I do not.
Okay. Okay. Can I have a motion to close public comment?
So moved, Council President.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposition, abstentions? Public comment is now closed. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposition, abstentions? All right, this meeting is adjourned.